had my mentor challenge me, and he challenged everybody in the room, and at that time there was only like 32 people in the room. And he goes, I'm not trying to embarrass you or anything. I just want you to tell me one original thought that you came up with. Give me one original thought that you really took the time, whether it was through meditation or prayer or whatever, and you're not around anybody. But the people that changed the world are people that focused on solutions and constantly came up with ideas of original ideas on how to serve humanity.
Welcome to episode 19 of the podcast Unlimited Wisdom with Robert Hollis. I'm Craig A. Jackman, along with Matt Hollis, and we are so glad to have you with us today. Today, our topic, that's bullshit.
Why are we so damn excited about this? I don't know.
Well, I think it has something to do with what you said during one of your other community groups that really made me think about this would be a very good topic for our podcast. So let's get started. Matt, Robert, welcome. I am excited, like you said, about this. It's a great comment on a lot of things.
Very cool. Well, the opening statement that I have for this is there used to be a show, Penn and Teller. I think that people would, for some people, it might mess them up a little bit. But the one thing that I consistently was a big aha moment for me, an incredible, significant emotional event, is their whole show was called Bullshit. And what they would do is constantly expose things that a lot of people believe in that's just really bullshit, right? But the episode that I got the most out of, that I had the aha moment from, was simply this theory, is that it's obvious with everything that people can see on everything from news to, social media to virtually everything that's out there, that everyone now is starting to understand that they can get more clicks, more views, more money off talking about shit that's not true than stuff that absolutely is. And so one of the things that's crazy about this is he goes, what is it? It's Penn that actually speaks. Teller doesn't speak.
Penn is the one that talks.
So what he said was this statement. He goes, now, I believe that we learn lessons through lies because we basically listen to people, and the way that we sort of learn to trust our instincts and our gut and our intuition, all the stuff that we don't practice on getting better at, different podcasts, is that we've all been taken advantage of. We've all been lied to. We've all fell into someone's bullshit. And that should be a signal that, oh my God, I thought I trusted myself a little better than that. I thought I had better instincts than that. And so I bring up the one that still to this day is the funniest one for me. And that's the one where, I'm on the internet for the first time. I'm on Netscape Navigator. I got my computer, and I get an email. And the email basically says that for everyone that forwards this email, Bill Gates is going to send them some money. And I don't remember what it was. It was like $5, $10 or whatever. But when I get excited about something, I'm very unique. And I love this part of me that I'm all in. I'm just all in. I learn from mistakes and I don't mind failing. But there wasn't I remember calling people on the telephone, asking them if they had an email address so I could send them this email. And I went berserk. And I know it was hundreds and hundreds of people. When I get focused, I can do some amazing things.
I bet you they had like an affiliate link and they're like, damn, this guy's really going to work for me. Or something.
And so I remember the first couple of messages that came back saying, Robert, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this is bullshit. You know what I mean? This is not true. And back then we didn't have Snoops and all these other places that you could go that I'm now finding out later are a little biased and bullshit. So it's like, where's this truth meter or this fact meter that you get to go to? But there was finally someone that sent me the email, and I don't remember who it was. And they even gave me a call, and they just said, listen, I called Microsoft. I was like, why didn't I? Why didn't I call Microsoft? Why did I have to blast this shit everywhere and not, maybe with the first one I could have went, right? And then, of course, there's websites. And he goes, listen, this is actually on Microsoft's website under frequently asked questions. I was like, oh, my God, are you fucking kidding me? And I remember the humiliation and the embarrassment and really, me with a lot of different voices, me beating the shit out of myself because I just couldn't believe you. You'll notice a lot of people will get more pissed off because they just feel, God, I just feel so stupid. I really feel stupid. And then a portion of the things that you go through when there's a loss or disappointment or whatever is, how can I be this stupid? And then it's like, I need to find out who fucking sent me this email because they're going to get reprimanded,
Go full Karen on them. Yeah.
It's a little bit of anger, a little bit that I, justice. How could, someone do this to
How
people?
dare they do this to me? Yeah.
Oh
right.
my God. On and on and on until you finally take personal responsibility for it. But in the bullshit episode, that one of the many things that I did. But the reason that I brought it up is I guarantee you that there was people that I sent that email to that because I sent it to them went ballistic in sending it everywhere as well. Mm-hmm. And here's the rub. The rub is that we try to learn through our own instincts and experiences in life of how to decipher who's full of shit, who's telling us shit. But they said the hardest part about lies and bullshit is the people that believe it and then share it. And that was me. So there was no way that someone could discern my spirit or trust their gut feelings with me because I believed in what I was sharing. And that's how shit goes viral. That's how everyone starts thinking of one thing. And before you know it, when it's exposed to be bullshit or a scam or whatever, it's like, oh my God, I'm responsible for hurting a lot of people that hurt a lot of people that hurt a lot of people. We always talk about and things, the theoretical example or the exponential growth or compounding, as Albert Einstein says, is the eighth wonder of the world. But when you realize that you were sharing something that someone shared, that someone shared, that someone shared, and now you're responsible for misleading millions, if not tens of millions of people. That's the world we live in today. That is really, really crazy. And so before I go into one other story I couldn't wait to share, I want to get your guys' sort of feedback at the beginning of this, because you guys know my Roger Penske story that was extremely humiliating and embarrassing as well, that I can't wait to share with the group.
Well, personally, it's funny. This shit like this happens like all the time, right? And I think that's one of those things is like once you realize that you're kind of just beating yourself up for no reason, or that personal accountability and it being humble, having humility and apologizing it goes so much further. Because I'll be on X now, Twitter used to be Twitter. And if you guys don't go on that platform or have never gone on that platform, then you might not know, but maybe you do from other platforms, that there's this little check mark next to someone's name, right? Now, this little check mark before Elon Musk bought Twitter used to mean like official account. Like this is somebody that officially is saying something, or they were officiated by Twitter, right?
Validated.
Validated. Thanks, Craig. And now all you have to do to get that check mark is spend like $10 a month or something like that. So because of that, there was this post because Justin Timberlake was just arrested for a DWI, right? There's this post that went viral on X with a whole entire page that looked like it was a normal page with the check mark next to it talking about all these other drugs that he had in his system. Well, of course, I saw that and I'm like, hey, I tell my friends that he's on all these drugs. I tell Hannah, my wife, that he's on all these drugs, right? And come to find out, a couple of other news sources, couple other YouTubers, couple other, like, it just keeps going and going. People perpetrate and say this stuff. Turns out that the account that posted that with the check mark was a spam fake account that was instead of it, the main account being Pop Smoke, it was actually Poop Smoke. So to show you how close or whatever, right? If you just take a little bit of second to read it, right? But that's one of those things, right? Where you're like, exactly like you said, Dad. You're like, oh shit, I told all these people all this stuff. It was misinformation. And it really makes you adjust because of course you got to have humility and go, I have to be more respecting and caring of people that fall for this stuff because everybody does. Right. Yeah. And some of us tend to like bully others for falling for something. And that's when they're like, their bias becomes even stronger. Right.
Right.
Because now you're actually not giving them the opportunity to learn. You're just bullying them for making a mistake, or even it's not even a mistake. It's just they didn't do enough research. Right. And so I just thought I'd share that really quickly because that just happened the other day. And
I don't know. I don't know, as someone that's 62 years old, a father and a grandfather, a husband for, over 40 years. I don't know how other people learn lessons.
Right.
Man, it would be very, very, very nice that you didn't have to do stuff that you find out later was not positive, not good, and go, I think that, I think instead of sharing stuff or making comments on stuff that, is against what I believe, you know what I mean? It's like, I know there's a lot of people that just want to perpetuate whatever thing that's out there. And they really don't know. I mean, here Craig and I are different age, but we all knew what the National Enquirer was.
Right.
Everybody knew what that magazine was. But yet they sold millions and millions and millions of copies. So, the good thing that I used to say before the internet when doing live trainings and live presentations is how many people recently bought a magazine or seen a magazine with Jennifer Aniston's picture on it that she was pregnant. And I'm going like, and so Terry used to say that she would buy all these and all of them would have a different thing of that. And of course that turned into social media and turned into TMZ or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, you sit there and you think about it. It's like, is there something very inherently wrong with the average human being that is like sort of fascinated by other people having problems?
Oh yeah, we always
it's like
it makes us look better that way.
We want to watch the train wreck, don't we?
We like it both ways. Yeah, we like it both ways. We like seeing someone succeed that shouldn't. We like someone that did succeed failing. Like, we like both areas because the Olympics are about to happen, right? And we're going to see a lot of that. Yeah, there's people that have already won medals that are competing from the other Olympic Games. And then there's brand new competitors coming up that are hoping that they're going to take all these medals away. So
one of the most famous pictures of all time is the agony of defeat when the guy messes up on the high jump.
the big ski jump, right?
Right.
It's like the victory and then the agony of defeat.
If only he had a dime for every time that thing was shown.
Oh my God, that'd be something you could look up and say who is the long jump skier that was on the agony of defeat. We should maybe give him a shout out.
Maybe he doesn't want it anymore. Maybe he's through with that part of his life. He's put that to bed. every time it's brought up.
Vinko Bogataj, a
See, that's the
former
thing, too.
Slovenian ski jumper.
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
I don't know.
Well, it just goes to show too, like certain things like that always like remind me that like you don't actually control your legacy in any way. Like even if he wasn't with us right now, both of you guys remember this dude for that one particular thing that he did.
But he
resides in Slovenia.
And this is
remember his name.
And do you guys? I don't remember this guy's name either, but I remember him being brought up the other day because of just the political landscape that's going on right now. But do you guys remember the dude that was running for president, and all he did was have his like voice break when he was doing a cheer, and that was like enough to end his political career? Do you guys remember that?
Oh, the
he was like, yeah,
he
did
that. I think
Howard.
Is that his name? I know somebody would know, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yahoo!
That's exactly. He did that, and like everybody was like, "Oh no, never mind." Like that was enough, right?
He's done.
But that's the thing is like you really don't. And the thing is too is like it's interesting. The more you allow other people to control the narrative of your life, it slowly but surely becomes like that type of shit can ruin you. Because now it's like, they all think of me this way. If he would have just came out and said, fuck it, and just like continued on as if nothing would have happened and didn't make a big deal out of it, he might have been able to keep his political career going.
Howard Dean.
Cheers to you, Howard.
Yeah.
So Craig, before I go on with my story, I wanted you to feed in on this topic a little bit. It's like, I know that Matt and I didn't mean to do this, but I think we just immediately so much know this is out there that and Matt talked about, some of the bullshit we got caught up in.
And that's the thing. I think we all get caught up with the bullshit that's out there, especially. And, I was going to bring up a point about that because especially when it comes to our news services. And talk about bullshit. And Matt and I kind of had a discussion before this about things like that. I remember, okay, we're going to go back a few years. Robert, you would know when the three major television networks, ABC, NBC, CBS. Okay.
Hey, we even say it in the order. That's funny.
Yeah. And it was the whole point of their newscasts was the news, an impartial review of the day's news. Now, each network had its own anchor, and each anchor had their own I'm not going to say their own way that they delivered the news.
Right.
But that was, and because I wanted to be in journalism. Journalism, in my opinion, was, especially at that time, we had Walter Cronkite as our standard bearer. Okay. And that's the way it is. But we had all of these men who grew up and they read the news. And it was basically just the facts. No bullshit. And if they found bullshit, they called it out and they corrected themselves because it was wrong. Wait a minute. We found out that this was incorrect and we apologize. Here is, so they did the due diligence and the research. Many years later come Congress, and they decide to deregulate the news industry because at the beginning of television and radio, the news, except for maybe commercial radio, local entities, the news was a loss leader to ABC, NBC, CBS, and other broadcasting outlets.
Right.
But they had to have the news, and they had to present the news in a fair way. Okay. Come the Congress and they decide to deregulate the news, and all of a sudden what happens? We get a Fox News. Let's see how much more heads we can get to come to our way. Let's say that let's twist the facts. Let's make things different. Let's make people think about not just the facts, but what if, and this issue starts to come up more and more. Fox starts to shift things away. Now, yes, there were maybe other outlets, but freedom of speech said you can't say things that are not true.
Right.
So there was that. But then all of a sudden, we see more bullshit come out of this congressional bill. With the deregulation of the news, now all of a sudden, news outlets have to start making money. What does that mean? That means that we have to try to attract the people, get their heads, get their eyes in front of our people.
Right.
So that we can make money.
Yeah,
that is what is
the
driving
fairness doctrine, right?
Follow
the
money.
fairness doctrine. Do you guys want to guess?
That's what it is.
Not to joke around, but do you guys want to guess when that was taken out? What year?
19. I want to say in the 90s.
So 1987. Now let's do another guess because I wasn't even alive yet. Who do you think was president of the United States when that happened?
If it was 87, I believe that was Reagan.
Boom, Reaganomics. No,
yeah, that's part of the Reaganomics. Okay. But this is why when we think of bullshit, and especially now with social media influences, the red team, the blue team, what happened to
the Kennedy team?
Just the facts. That's what news should be. Journalism has now, especially when we look at things, and I'm going to blame a lot of the cable news because they're obviously trying to draw eyes. So here we have CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, Fox, Breitbart, Newsmax, all of these people that are trying to get people to watch them. And what happens, Robert, exactly what your opening was with today's podcast. They don't fact check.
Right.
They don't look at what is real. They look at what they believe and what their people believe is the truth. They don't look at the facts. And we have gotten so far away from the facts now that okay, there is talk of this supposed civil war taking place right now, actually, because we have our red team and our blue team. Not what's best for the United States, but what's best for my team, my red team, my blue team, damn it.
Right.
And you're wrong. You are absolutely wrong.
Right.
No, I was joking with Craig before this because I was saying, like the consistency of like I just think it's the whole thing is set up to just fail on purpose,
right
at this point. So like truth be told, we were going to end up in a world at some point based off of the way that things work that money was going to become an issue as far as like the capitalistic buildup of how the news was run. The news has to be profitable. When you have more channels, you have less eyes. When you have less eyes, there's less profit. Less profit means you have to find where to get that profit. If you don't have the money and you're not being subsidized by the government to have that money, what is it called? PBS, right? At least used to be. It's slowly but surely being whittled down as well.
That even itself is, yeah.
But because that's not the case, then you have to find a way. How do I make news make money, right? Or we want to make money here. You can't run a company without money. So then you have to start figuring out ways to make a profit off what you're saying. And now you could start having opinionated news or sided news or whatever it may be. But the truth be told is that you could blame the news networks for like changing people's opinions drastically. But when I started this, I was talking about personal accountability. And one thing that I'm thinking more and more about lately, especially with where the world is right now, is the holy shit, we did this to ourselves. Like, do I consume news this way?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm part of the person watching the advertisements that's feeding the system that I'm openly complaining about.
Yeah.
So I'm accountable to the reason that it's that way. And I think
We
a lot
all
of people don't think about that. They don't take personal accountability. They just look at the situation and go, "Man, the situation's so fucked," as if we weren't the ones that made it that way. As if
Bingo.
we're not the ones
Bingo.
that the more we focus on our own individuality, of course, everybody else is going to want to focus on theirs. They're going to care less about their neighbors and more about themselves and how everything pertains to them, right? It's like, okay,
Right.
if the person's not mowing their yard, that's how dare they? The homeowners association exists,
geez.
and you don't know that they've been dealing with cancer and can't mow their yard. Doesn't fucking
Right.
matter to you, because the individuality aspect to your life cares more about how that grass pertains to your property and you than the person that has to mow it or whatever they're
Personal
dealing with.
gratification that we have, the id, is what's
And
taking, or
yes.
even the super ego, if you want to get into psychiatry.
True.
Forgive me, I'm not a psychiatrist, but the fact that these are like part of the emotions that drive us.
Yeah,
And
we want to belong. We want to be part of something.
right.
And if we want to be along in a part of a group, we definitely want to be on the right side.
Well, that's
want,
a choice,
you know,
right?
We you know, who wants to purposely pick the side that's losing? Why does it, you know? And I think about, you know, what people don't even realize is that, you know, I did with AI really quickly. You know, I put in here some of the, you know, the biggest hoaxes. And the one that came up immediately is this, the Duke lacrosse team. You know, all these kids that were basically said that they gang raped this girl, and then find out that all of them lost their entire lives, and then they found out that she was lying.
Oh yeah.
And you know, you look at the news that was on it and talking about all these kids, and you know, why did everybody want to boys that play lacrosse? I mean, can you get any more nose stuck up in the air than a lacrosse team? You know, guys going to Duke University. It's like, oh my God, these guys, you know, have a silver spoon in every orifice of their body. You know what I mean? And it's like everyone wanted to, you know, vilify them, and their whole entire lives are fucking ruined.
Yeah. Nobody is willing to take the time to research what is fact and what is fiction anymore, which is why we are where we are. We just assume that, okay, just because this guy is the head of the right team, that everything he says is right.
Right.
And that this guy who's the head of the blue team, everything he says is right. The problem is that fact has been thrown out the window. And what happens? Bullshit.
I remember, you know, one time, you know, social media starting to fly, and, you know, and everybody, you know, sent this picture out, and it was like, rest in peace. I don't even remember who the actor was, or the
Joe Rogan.
Yeah. They're still doing that. Right. And I remember sharing it with a few people, again, got caught, and people are going, this is not true. And then I thought to myself, well, there's two things that I could do. One is I can research, or I can just simply ask myself, why in the fuck am I sharing shit that I don't know is true?
Well, this is a big thing, right? Is like,
and then that stops something called a distraction that allows me to focus on some shit that's not bullshit.
Well, it's all, at the end of the day, it's all entertainment, like, anyway. And like, that's the thing, is like, a lot of us see like a juicy headline that leans into what we already believe anyway, as if the algorithm isn't feeding us that based off of what we've already given it by watching, viewing, doing all these different kinds of things, right? So we see a certain article or we see a certain headline and we go, this fits my agenda perfectly. I need to share this with the people, not only that agree with my agenda, but I need to take it another step further. I need to share this with a person that's the opposite of my agenda, just to make our relationship so much better. You know what I mean? And I think what's so interesting about that,
I'm on the team.
My team's winning, right? My team's winning. And what's so interesting about that is that I think so many people are so disconnected from their own personal self and their own personal wins that some random person that has no care for you or no connection with you whatsoever winning is a win for you in some way. And you see this with sports teams or whatever as well, right? Like someone will say, we won the World Cup, right? As if you were on the stage, you did all the practices, you were all there and stuff. It's like you didn't really win anything, right? It was the team that won it. And then when they lost, then guess whose fault it was? Not theirs. It's not that we lost.
Everybody else.
It's they lost. You know what I mean? So I think like what you're saying, Dad, when you can actually have the observation to like look at what you're doing and perceive it in the same eyes of even the people that you're sharing it with, like take a second and be like, how would I feel if I was this person receiving this information? Or is this even interesting? Because, you know, feel free to share the puppy memes and the puppy pictures and the shit that makes people feel good. I think that that's great. You know what I mean? And a lot of people sometimes that like is what they need to get through the day is like some form of that, right? Because their rest of their day's shit. But I think with a lot of the negativity and a lot of the sharing of those aspects, I try to stop myself. And Hannah is like my wife's the person to like, unfortunately, I know the same for Mom with you, Dad, but she's the person that normally gets like the first set of the stuff, right? Because she's just the closest to me. So if I'm thinking a certain thing or have an opinion on something, I'm going to tell my wife about it. You know what I mean? We just have that kind of relationship where she can share what she feels and I can share what I feel. And so she ends up being that person. But even with her now, I'm trying to be better at going, is this something that Hannah really cares about? Should I really be sharing this? And I'm trying my best to like not be so individualistic that I need to share something. Like, I ask myself this question, am I sharing something with her so I can get the validation that what I was doing was okay to be doing, or whether it was entertaining or whether it was a good thing? Is like, in a lot of ways, I think when we do share stuff with people, you got to ask yourself, is this something that would benefit them, or is this something that's benefiting me by giving me some form of validation by them going, yeah, that is funny, right?
Great point. The one story that, you know, that I seen this later on after I got this scolding from Roger Penske, and it was one of those things that I heard where someone comes to you and they want to tell you something about somebody, right? You know what I mean? The water cooler people, we all want to be in the deal, right? And I can remember one time where it was basically said to me, is the information that you're about to share with me about whoever, do you believe that that's going to change the way that I feel and think about that person? Because it all comes down to motive, to why you're doing this thing, right? Oh my God, I got to tell you something about Matt. You know, this is what I heard about Matt. And the first one is, you know, which is another obvious one, is what you're about ready to share with me going to change the way I feel about Matt? I think it would. I don't know if I want to hear it. Even if it was true, I don't need you changing my perception of another human being based off a rumor, right? The second one has to deal with motivation. Is what you're about ready to tell me, do you believe that that's going to put you in a better light than the person that you're talking about? Because we all know that we come from this competitive state, right? So the thing I want to share with Craig about Matt is I sort of in a way am jealous and competitive and envious of the relationship that Craig has with Matt. And I'm trying to get closer to Craig. So maybe I can throw in today's terms, maybe there's different terms, I can throw Matt under the bus.
Throw shade. Right.
And hopefully this will get me more favor in the eyes of Craig. And then the last one, which I think now should probably be the first one, is, do I really know without a shadow of a doubt the stuff that I'm about ready to say is fact? You know, and when you really get down to that one point being fact, is that, golly, when you really, really think about it, They've done the experiments. These are actual experiments. I remember looking them up one time. Ever since Matt introduced me to AI, I was going like, "Hey, I heard this about this study. Was this really a fucking study, or was this bullshit?" Right? Is someone, there's a classic one that's out there all the time that says that if Bill Gates said in a talk show, and I think it was with Johnny Carson, and people don't realize how old he is, or David Letterman, but it's basically that Bill Gates was asked if he lost it all, if he lost everything, what would he do? And his response was, "I'd get involved in network marketing." And I still hear that today, that more millionaires are made in this industry than any other industry. And again, just bullshit, 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 bullshit. You know what I mean? Those things didn't happen, but people hear them. And then they're the perpetuator of this, keep bringing it up because they think it's going to do something. But the other study that I looked up is they've done these studies where, where police or FBI or whoever, like the Oklahoma City bombing. And this was actually a study where they went out, because they bombed all these children at a daycare center, and a lot of other people died in that scenario. And so they went out and talked to people that seen something. There was 2,100 interviews done. Not one story was the same. Over 2,100. And they said simple things like, what was the color of the truck that pulled in front that had the bomb in it? There was over 140 people that said it was a different color than it actually was. It was brown. I think, yeah, it was definitely brown.
If they're colorblind,
it was a Penske truck. It was a Penske truck. It was a U-Haul truck. It was all of these things. So people's ability to want to feel validated or appreciated for coming up with a story to solve a case are usually making up shit. And they want to make up shit and listen to this. The study was basically the bullshit that they were saying is they truly wanted to help catch this guy that blew up all these little children. It wasn't done with malice. Everyone that was interviewed wanted this son of a bitch to pay. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't any motive for them to give anyone any bad information. Yet the stories didn't match.
You know what, Robert? You kind of are setting, in my opinion, okay, you're setting yourself up to tell us that story of Roger Penske that you experienced directly with him. And I think this would right now be a perfect time to share that.
Okay. So, here I am. I am a weirdo. I wanted to work for the very best of the very best of the very best. I still find it very interesting, and I appreciate each and every one of you that watch this video live or recorded for just doing what you do every day, whatever it is. I can't relate. So whatever I'm doing at the point I'm making it, I always want to work with the very best. I always want to find the person that has the evidence that's most documented at doing what they're doing, and I want to learn from them. I just have had that in me my entire life. And so there's no one, in my opinion, or in stats and validation or documentation beats conversation or evidence, there's no one that's won more or done more in motorsports than Roger Penske. So my whole goal was one day I'm going to work for this dude. And I pulled it off. And so I moved from Montana out to California, and I'm working for Longo Toyota in El Monte, California, working for the largest dealership in the world. Again, evidence. These people don't make up stuff, right? Number of cars sold, right? And I end up getting on Toyota Research and Development as part of their development team that makes race cars, and I was blessed to get on that. And Now, what Roger Penske did is he would basically say, listen, what makes me great and what makes us great, what makes Penske Motorsports is we're always in a mastermind. We're always, two minds are better than three. Three are better, four are better than three. And it's like that's the first time that I heard of this concept that, we all get great thoughts by hanging around each other, bouncing ideas off each other. Well, I had been through a number of these, probably like three or so. And I just had that probably human thing that I wanted to feel like I was part. I wanted to feel like I'm contributing. I want to feel I'm constantly got my mind, where thoughts are things that I need to find something that I couldn't wait to tell the team about. Right. And I believe that I set this up. I totally now believe I set this all up. So we get done with a race. It was in Detroit, and we all go to where all the racers go at some kind of, pub or dive. And there was a bunch of people there from the Newman Haas team, and they were talking about what they were planning on doing with the undercarriage of the Indy car. That they figured out that they wouldn't have to put so much front wing and rear wing in if they could make this vortex thing underneath the car actually suck it to the road. And I never ever said this before in telling this story. The thing that I actually told Roger, actually we ended up doing, and it did work. I never said that before in this story. But to stay in the story, right? I raised my hand and I'm known as Bobby. And he's going, Bobby, what'd you hear? And I was telling him about what I heard this other team saying. He immediately said to me, were you in your uniform? And I'm like, that's how we got chicks. I was definitely in our uniform. And it's like, yeah, I work for this team. Of course I was in my uniform. And he immediately said, listen, what did you do any research on it? I said, research. And he goes, well, they gave you a theory. Did you do any research on it? See, I didn't get to tell him what I heard. I told him that, hey, I got this concept that I heard from these guys. And he immediately tore that down. And he's going, well, if they seen you in your suit, what if they knew that you were listening to them and they just made up a bunch of bullshit that you would bring back to us? And I went, I don't know why that would make any difference. I was sort of puzzled. And then he went into the changing of my life. He asked me, how do you know this to be true? How do you know this? How do you know that? And when I didn't do any research, then he told me, he said, well, imagine that this is how many employees we have. I was I think of that branch was like, there was 70 people, 77 or 78 people just in that organization that I was with, but he employed hundreds of thousands of people. And all of a sudden he says, so we believe what you say, we try it on a car, and then Rick Mears or Danny Sullivan or Emerson Faldapeldi get in the car and they die. And that now makes a widow, that now makes children without a father, that now puts a damper on our reputation and we lose sponsors, that now doesn't allow me to employ you and all the people in this room. And it hurts my reputation. And he's like, Bobby, you gotta take a little time before you bring something up in front of us on stuff that you did in research to find out if what you're sharing with anybody is truth. And if it's not, you can still use that idea and do the research on it and bring your concept and beliefs on base what you heard to us. But please, you guys, and then he, took the lesson of making me feel like I could play handball against the curb, or I had to reach up to tie my shoe. It's like, man, I just never ever felt, so bad in my life, but it was a lesson. It was immediate lesson to me that if I heard something, there's only two things that I feel you should do if you hear something, see something, whatever. Is one, the first question you should ask yourself is, should you really take any time, sort of like Matt talked with Hannah? Should you actually take any time, and is it worth it to research to see if this is absolutely true? Because I can guarantee you a majority of the time it's not. It's nothing but a distraction, and that's all it really is. It's something that you're avoiding doing that would better your family and friends and yourself. And so it's easier to get caught up in avoidance activity being a distraction. And then you don't realize how much you're doing. So is it okay to do research on stuff? Sure. But you got to ask yourself why. Is that really worth it? And that's where most stuff will stop. I find myself better today than I've ever been, where I see something and it'll tweak me a little bit or trigger me a little bit. And I'll think about sending it to Matt or Craig or Terry. And then I go, no. And here's where Matt brings up something that's very important, is that you think about distracting the person instead of your own fucking agenda. It's like, should I send this to Matt and Craig? This is fucking awesome. And it's like, I don't want them distracted. I don't need this in their head. I don't need them to respond to this. Now it's like, I'm not sharing stuff with people because I don't want to waste their time. Who gives a shit if it's true or not? Right? It's like, and that's the way I feel about politics right now. It's like, holy crap, anything that I heard or thought or learned, why am I sharing it with somebody? And there's really only two reasons. If you didn't do the research, is one, there is still this inherent competitive part of us that if I know that Craig is a pro somebody or a pro something, what is this weird competition that we have within ourselves where I gotta go, oh my God, this is totally gonna disprove Craig's fucking beliefs and theories.
Yeah.
Well, it gives you like some form of superiority or significance,
Right,
and like a lot of
exactly.
people
It is that
deal with
super-
not having that anywhere else in their lives. So it's like it becomes so imperative, and this is actually something psychologically that video games and a lot of things do with your mind, especially social media. But that dopamine release, or the way that you get response to things, like, and I brought this up in the past, back in the day, if you wanted to get like that dopamine hit, you had to like go build a fence or something like that, right? Like you had to go fucking do something that you were proud of yourself.
You actually had to create something.
Exactly. And now,
Seriously?
and now that everybody has their own opinion, and it's also somewhat anonymous if you choose for it to be, you know, if you choose for it not to be, you'll just get a following of people that agree with you. But that's the case, is it's like they're getting that hit or that response from that. And what they don't understand is that the human brain is just a machine, a computer, like all the rest of these things, just the most advanced one to ever exist. So the more you feed it programs, the more you feed it the same shit, the more it's going to want that, the more it's going to hunger for that. That's how you become an alcoholic. That's how you become a drug addict, right? Everyone's always chasing that first time it felt good. You know what I mean? And so since that's the case, they're constantly getting on and feeling some form of self-worth by going, I'm better than Joe Schmo because Joe Schmo believes in this, right?
Yep.
I may, the rest of my life may be going absolutely awful, but I know that I'm smarter than Joe Schmo because Joe Schmo believes in God, or Joe Schmo believes in this or that or whatever, right? And so similarly to what we've been sharing in the bullshit thing in here, is like, identify if you're doing that in any area of your life and stop it, please. Yeah. Because it's like, it's not really benefiting you.
No.
And it's not benefiting your relationships. That's without a shadow of a doubt. So
And if you hear it, you need to call it out. You need to say, in a nice way, other than just yelling at somebody, bullshit. Although sometimes that may need to be said. But the point is, you know, Robert, you always keep saying, how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that?
Right.
And in a sense, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because until you know it for sure, until you've researched it.
But
Yeah.
if we were all using our heart and our love and focused on loving ourselves, I should have my radar up, which I love this about me. I really love this about me. I always ask people, tell me some stuff you love about yourself. I'm working on that every day. The thing I love about myself is I'm consistently looking for and attracting videos and books and comments and quotes that help people get to where they want to go. It's like I'm instead of looking for something that could smash somebody, you know what I mean? Ha ha ha, you believe in this. Look at this as bullshit. I'm more of a person that's looking for validation and approval and inspiration on something that you're already believe in. So I've sent Craig stuff just because I know he's an actor. I've sent Craig stuff just because I know the things that he loves. And when you're a person that's constantly thinking about people and your thought is about, wow, this is something that would validate what they're doing. This is something that would encourage them. This is something. And what if the whole world was doing that? Not saying that I'm perfect, but I'm telling you what, I get a lot of dopamine off doing that. I get a lot of dopamine off, hey, Matt, look at this saying. Hey, Craig, look at this video. And I do that with my entire following. I've been posting on my wall forever, and I don't post stuff that discourages people. I see, and I'll show you how small you can be off. I know people that are constantly posting bullshit about people doing bad things. Like they'll post stuff like, hey, if you ever had a narcissist in your life, this is what, and it's like, you know what I mean? Every one of their posts, they think that it's encouraging, but what they're doing is complaining and bashing a group of people. So you can actually lose an election for a lot of reasons, including standing up on stage and calling everybody a deplorable. Might just be a bad move. Or you get recorded, at a fundraiser and you actually say the words like, hey, we know that, 95% of the people are not going to understand the conversation I'm having right now. If you guys remember what candidate did that was Romney.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, when you get caught saying what you mean and what you feel, it's like, hey, we're all really rich. You're all donating to me. And we know that the average person doesn't get this shit and never will. Wow. That can turn on you pretty fucking fast.
That goes back to like the humility and being like genuine and what you want to do and not needing that validation so much from other people. Like even you go to the tippity top and those people are still seeking validation. Like there's so much in us because
it's about ratings. It's about viewership. It's about, your ratings, everything.
Well, and some of the people,
ratings.
Yeah, some of the people that are like at that top, right, have learned how to give themselves that validation, even if it's fake. You know what I mean? Like they'll make up stories or say things that they've done or that they haven't done that are not necessarily true, or play around with the facts of what's true, right? But even Craig, like when you're talking about facts and everything like that, it's crazy that even in this time, like as we're talking about bullshit, how difficult it is to accept one thing's a fact and one thing's not. Because, there was this huge, and I don't really follow him as much anymore, but there was this huge interview with Joe Rogan and this guy named Terrence Howard, right? And he did this big interview, and it was about science, and he was saying mathematics was wrong, and he was right.
Yeah.
Yes. Neil deGrasse Tyson made a great video about it. Joe Rogan actually did something that I admire him for. He brought Terrence Howard back on and brought an actual documented scientist on to talk to him about it. And so that podcast was posted, and it is cringe to watch because Terrence Howard, you watch him in real time, start to realize he actually knows fucking nothing. Like he's like Biden trying to do the debate. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know where his mind's at, but it's not there. You know what I mean? And so it just goes to show that this man can be so confident about what he's saying that people left the first podcast going, this dude needs to get in some more credible shit because clearly he knows something that most other people don't. And then you watch a scientist sit down with him and do the exact thing that like brilliant people do when they talk to people that think they know what they're talking about. They don't tell them they're wrong. They don't say, oh, what you're speaking is bullshit. They just let them talk and ask them questions.
Yeah.
They do it all to themselves. There's no requirement there. So all he had to do is ask him more details about his theory. And before you knew it, he would ask questions like this. Can you explain, you talk about energy in this specific way here. Can you explain what that means to me for you? And he explains it. And he's like, it's interesting that you'd explain it that way because believe it or not, you left two of the largest elements out of what makes that theory out. It's weird how you leave those two things out when that's actually in the paper. Did you not know that was in the paper or did you just leave it out on purpose? Oh no, I forgot about it. Well, do you know what those two things are? This and this. What you said was close to the words of what they are. Did you mean this, this, and this? Yes, those are the things that I meant. Well, what does that do? And you saw him be stuck in these situations where he had to explain more detail his theories, and he could not do it. Because eventually it got to the point where he had to explain shit that this dude actually knew.
Right.
And instead of, you could see Terrence Howard, his brain was going crazy with it because you could see the embarrassment of realizing that he believed that he was special and knew something, and he was realizing in real time that wasn't the case. And it's like in the most embarrassing way you can in front of millions of people.
Right.
So it's like, yes, you can believe your own bullshit. Absolutely. You could think you're a genius. You could think that you're going to revolutionize mathematics, change the way the world works. But the truth is, just like that Neil deGrasse Tyson video, which was brilliant, by the way, talking about that
I
stuff.
watched the whole thing. That was good.
Yeah. It doesn't make you a bad person for having excitement and having a dream and wanting to pursue something like that. That aspect of your life and you wanting to share that with confidence is a great part of you if you can get it attached to something that's factual, something that actually is you and that matters. And be very careful at not attaching it to something that you believe gives you significance. But the reality is it's not what you want. You just want everybody to believe that you are that. So it's like, in his case, he wanted people, and he believed it himself, that he was some form of hidden genius, right? That was just happened to be an actor first, and then he was one of those people that figured out
he figured out all this broken code that people hadn't figured out.
Right. Exactly. And, you spend enough time with yourself and before you know it,
or it's probably more than yourself, Matt. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
It's more better, if that's a word, that you have an entire following of people that also say you're a genius because they didn't take the time.
Oh, of course, Robert. Didn't you know that? That's why we're where we are.
Is that called a cult or a organized religion or something? It's like you get.
Well, it's just a belief, and that's the thing. Is like, regardless of what you think about Trump, no one even asks themselves with the whole situation that's going on right now, in the United States. No one asks themselves what the fuck we're gonna do with all of these people, regardless of what happens. That there's a large group of people, whatever side you're on, that believe stuff that might be pretty fucking out there. And how do you bring these people back to reality? How do you bring them back to normalcy? How do you bring them back? It's like the Afghanistan approach. It's like, let's just go carpet bomb the fuck out of them, and then they'll let them rebuild themselves and hope to God that they don't hate your guts for what you did.
Wait a minute.
That's the difficulty, is that
what bullshit lie was that?
Right. Yeah. It's like it's similar to the deplorable thing, like you said. It's like
weapons of mass destruction. We were just talking about that, Matt, where not only did whatever agency, the best agency that we have it, but then Colin Powell goes to the United Nations and gets backed up by every country in NATO, along with their intelligence, that this guy's got weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
So we just carpet bomb him. The countries next to it, I still don't know how many civilians and women and children that
You
were
never
killed.
will, you never will know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he gets kicked out of office and killed. And neighboring countries, they do that too. And it's like, we didn't find anything.
After all that.
But that's the thing,
And
is
it
like,
goes
when
to the
you-
how do you know that when
Yeah.
you
What
the
go into
hell?
stuff like this? How do you know that? It's, why if we're supposed to be this amazing nation, and I'm just going to continue to on the train we're in, but it's not just our nation, it's anything. How do you know that? Why can't we have people, and I'm going to say even that are on the red team or the blue team,
Oh, you can't go against your
start
team.
saying, how do you know that? Is
You can't
it
go against
true?
your team. You can't go against.
I don't. Do you guys think that works in today's day and age, to asking people why they don't know something? Because I think
Nowadays it doesn't.
here's the interesting
because
thing,
we've
and this
seen
goes,
everyone that's confronted with that the whole concept of, I love the saying that I've said for years, if what you know that you know that you know that you would be willing to fight for isn't so, when would you want to know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And see, I can bring up funny things like mint on a bench, or Santa
Elf on a shelf?
Claus,
Is that
or
weird?
Elf on a Shelf, Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny. See, there's a lot of stuff that we look at and we just don't realize that sometimes it's just better for a majority of the followers, which people sometimes get pissed off when they're called sheeple. But sometimes it's just easier to go along with the flow. It's just easy enough. Like, no one wants to say, hey, listen, does a higher education really better you? Having a degree, does that really make you a better person and make you more money than a person without a degree? I don't know where that bullshit came from, but I know how they created it. It was a sales tool. All we got to do is give, Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs an honorary doctorate, and they're a multi-billionaire, and then I get to add them in the curve that we used to get graded on, that the average person that graduated from this university with this degree made this much money. They skew the numbers. That's why they're good at sales.
Oh yeah, I remember watching a video about that. It's like,
so then they can stand in front of a large group of people and say these, Ivy League colleges that you get a degree from, and then they figured out how to make more money. It's like, why don't we just give these people loans? They don't have any credit or any way to pay for it, but why don't we just give them loans? You know what I mean? And it's like, people just don't understand that a majority of this stuff is products that were thought up. That, why am I bringing it up? Because when we find out about it and the mass public finds out about it, it's like, okay, so if one person can all of a sudden give all these kids zero on pay off their debt, how about all the people that went and got the loans and paid them off? How about paying them fucking back with interest? No one's brought that up.
Well, I think that I would say that goes back to the same individuality thought, that because somebody else has benefit, that therefore you also should get benefit. Right. That's not the way the world works. You should want. Here's the truth of it. I saw a video the other day that I did share, speaking about sharing, and I did do research on it. But this woman went through her bill because her and her husband just had their first child. And they didn't have insurance. The total amount for the bill to have their first child in the United States was over $80,000 to just have the baby.
7,000.
Right. To just have the baby. Right? Now you ask yourself, what country that would want to succeed long term, that would want to win long term, would not subsidize the birth of new tax paying hardworking citizens and educate them to the best of their ability, so therefore that they have the best workforce and the most intelligent people out there. If you're in a country that's no longer doing that or is not doing that, clearly something else is going a different way. And I think the
Common
reason
sense.
that it's the bullshit thing that no matter, like, similar with the schools, we're stuck in this some weird form of unregulated capitalism, to the point that it's consistently hungry. It's always starving. It's never fulfilled. And what do I mean by that? If Harvard doesn't have better numbers next quarter than it had the quarter before, Harvard is not doing well. Even if it's consistently the same.
Right.
So at some point, you guys, you're gonna, in the beginning, it works really, really well because it kind of benefits both people. But as capitalism and it becomes more unregulated, so now loans can be as much as they want. Look back 30, 40 years, the loans were 30 grand. Then they go up. Inflation goes up, so the money goes up. Cost of the loans go up. They're going up because you have to have numbers every single quarter that you're growing.
Yeah.
If you're not growing, you're dying, right? And so that's the issue with a lot of things, including Amazon, a lot of big companies nowadays, is that they're sitting in this
stock market.
Yes. They're sitting in this place where their stockholders and the people that are on the board and the people that run the company need to consistently have growth of the corporation in financials, not in people, but in financials. So hard-earned money. And there's only two ways to get to those things. Either make shit cost more or get rid of shit that costs money. And that's what you see them do. That's how you can see a company have record profits. Microsoft just had record profits in their gaming industry and announced it. And this was right after they closed down 3 video game studios that were acclaimed because their games didn't do so well, even though they were the ones that pushed them to make these particular games. They weren't even in their wheelhouse. They're just the type of game that was selling at that time, right? And so it's just like, make the game that, and this is the same with movies, right? Make the movie that will make us a bunch of money. Well, how can you do that? It needs to be as relatable to as many people as possible. Well, how do we do that? Make sure you have a bunch of people that are, you can change the minorities of things. You can change the sexual orientation of people, even classic characters. You can do all these things because we need to hit as many demographics as possible because we need to make a profit. Yeah, but the script I wrote for this movie has nothing to do with any of these things. The characters are already written and they're not gay or they're not, they're not this particular thing because when I wrote the story, I didn't see them that way. That wasn't part of the story. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't write a story that has characters that are like that, but just not this one. You know what I mean? And then it's like,
gotta fit.
And what do the studios do? Out the door.
Well, they say, we already bought your script and we're just going to make it with somebody else. So we'll take your idea, but you're just not going to be involved anymore. Right. And then they announce, what do they announce? Then they do that announcement. We've separated because of creative differences.
Yeah.
Right. Which is basically talk in those areas for this person wanted to do something really cool and we told them no. You know?
Well, it's funny because Matt, you go into the areas that you love the most, and so did Craig, and so did I, even with talking about
Racing.
Things. But don't you guys find it interesting that it didn't make a difference if we went on tangents? We're still talking about bullshit.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy. Where I can go off on schools or people in the politics. Matt can go over capitalism and the movie industry. It doesn't make a difference what groups we're talking to. It's people just don't really realize that a majority of the people on the planet and the world are really usually focused on a lot of selfish means. It really is about listen, here's how I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. This is how I'm going to be the CEO of this company and have it have record profits. And it is pretty sad that the individual person, or the thought of how we can better mankind. I bit into this years ago because I was part of it. But immediately when I got introduced to the educational system, no one was interested in finding out how they could help me. They just wanted to put me in a different box. And that box was, people that have difficulty learning in the box that we're in. So we'll just run you through school. You know what I mean? I don't know how many of you have ever been to public schools or even, colleges, and you always see the people that are different than us. Did you ever realize that all the special kids also graduated? You know what I mean? So they found a way for them to get a high school diploma. And while you're watching them get a high school diploma, you going, that person doesn't possess the mental faculties to earn the same degree that I just fucking got.
That goes back to
Isn't
the
that the same thing
individuality.
as-
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they devalue what I have because they have it as well. It's like
Yeah.
one of the weirdest selfish things I think we do as human beings is we try to like devalue other people just because or what they've done or what they haven't done because of when they did it. I'm 32. So of course the young person's game right now is I'm 32 and I'm not as successful as some of these other 32-year-olds. So obviously I'm not a success at life because I haven't done that yet. I haven't accomplished these things yet. And it's always interesting because it's like no matter what you go down that route, it's never really servicing you because a lot of the people that become massive successes at things tend to get there because they had no desire for like the money aspect of it. They were just doing it because they loved it. They're really good at it, right? The mastery thing. They wanted to master something that was important to them. And so instead of looking at numbers and going, we need to figure out how the numbers skew in this way or that way, they were just like, are we growing? Yes, then let's keep going. And this is why it's like funny to watch privately held companies compete against publicly held companies. Because there's this joke that always happens where it's like, what does a privately held competitor have to do? Just wait. Just wait, because they'll make a mistake because they're publicly held enough that at some point they're going to have to make a stupid mistake or a decision that makes no sense for their customers, makes no sense for the company's long-term growth or benefit. It only makes sense for the next quarterly earnings report. Right. So it's like, why would you fire a lot of the people that designed the software that got the company to this point? They're the most expensive software developers. Well, they're expensive because they built the software that you guys made all your money off of. Yeah, but the younger people can make the software as well.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, you're going to get rid of the smart people that can mentor those people and bring in young people that don't know what they're doing to be mentored by nobody and be thrown into the deep part of the pool. That's what tends to happen. And it sucks because then it's like,
you
can see the degradation of shit as that's happened.
Well, so. and to continue, like in a sense, Matt, what Robert was saying right before you started, in another fashion is, how come we always give trophies to everybody in a league play when trophies are for the winners? Does that mean that the person who didn't win should get a trophy? No, I mean, they should get something maybe for participating. They should get acknowledgement for participating. But does that help them to become better than what they are? Hey, I got a trophy. Yeah, what was your batting average? 146.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of those age-old things that I love to talk about sometimes as like a millennial. And especially like the younger generations, because they will go, these millennials, they're just such snowflakes with their participation trophies and all this shit that they grew up with. And it's
we hear that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, who gave us those participation trophies and medals? We were kids. We didn't make that decision.
Right.
maybe it was the losers from before that didn't get anything and felt a little butthurt about it, so they needed their kids to get something.
Exactly.
Has nothing to do with us. Take personal responsibility and go. I've created the system that facilitated all these kids getting participation trophies and medals because I didn't come in first, second, and third and get anything myself, so I felt like a failure. And I didn't want that failure to be on my child. That's a caring and loving thing. Of course it is. I don't want my kid to feel failure. So then we don't let them. And then what do you think happens? They don't know the responsibility of failing, and they also don't have to they don't know how to take winning either. Like, they take winning out of control and go, everybody else is a fucking loser, and they haven't accomplished anything. And so now you have this whole group of people that feels like they didn't accomplish anything, and then this whole group that feels like they did, and so it's
even though we're talking about
it's bullshit is what I'm saying.
Yeah even though we're talking about bullshit, maybe in a short positive light, that's why I think that the Olympics does what it does. To think that there was a group of people that, regardless of wars and whatever else was going around, they're going like, hey, can't we put this competition together where the best of the best get to go against each other, and maybe like a whole country can cheer for a couple of freaking heroes. And what do we see in every Olympics? We see upsets. We see underdog stories. We see, people that weren't thought to get it. And we see, people that had something tragic happen to them, like we talked about the skier, and they end up with massive redemption. So I think we all, regardless of how much bullshit out there, would really like to define what a person is that found imagination. They went into their imagination with everything they had in their heart and soul, and they just outworked everybody. They fucking never gave up the imagination. They consistently, someone told me this other day, don't know this to be true, but I guess Simone Biles or whatever.
Simone Biles,
yeah,
the gymnast.
Yeah, she's won 9 world championships in a row, and of course had to pull out of the last Olympics because of mindset, and now
Mental
she's
health.
going back, and they said that she's got 3 moves that she does that no other gymnast can do in the world. And so she gets to go into a competition, and if she does the least hardest one, she wins the competition. But just as someone shows up at the Olympics that might pull something out of her hat, she's got another 2 moves to make sure she gets the gold. I'm going like, when they start naming moves after you.
I remember too, like similarly
this
with
is
Shaun
pushing.
White, right?
This
like
is,
yeah,
Shaun White. Yeah,
another one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell the
No,
story,
he did
Matt.
something similar, and it's like one of those situations where there's such competitors too. Like, just bringing up Shaun White, he had a couple of these tricks, and then if I recall correctly, he had already won, and then he went out on his final run and did them anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that was one of those
Red Bull that
Right.
was sponsoring him used military helicopters to fly these snow moving things out in the middle of
I
nowhere.
remember that. Yeah, there was a
build
documentary about
course
it.
for him, so no one could spy on him perfecting these tricks. And I'm going like, man, there's, we talk about all the bullshit distractions that we all get caught up in, and I use the word "we" very strong. And I remember sending Matt, hey, have you ever seen this black actor that's on Joe Rogan talking about how his invention is the reason that VR and AR exists? And I now think about that, and Matt was really nice. He was really nice to me. He didn't come back and go, Dad,
I wasn't always that way though.
Yeah, you're going down the
asshole.
bullshit. You're going down the bullshit place. He was really nice. What he just did is he sent me a video with Neil deGrasse Christ. I can't. I gotta
Neil
get
Neil
deGrasse
deGrasse
Tyson.
Tyson.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Zach, I don't call him Tyson because I only know Mike Tyson, right?
Right.
And so, but the way that he did the video and explaining what science meant to him and what he knows science means to other people and how they figure out whether something is right or wrong, you know. And he even brought up in that video that when Albert Einstein came out with the relatively,
Theory of
gravity,
relativity.
Yeah.
yeah, that 100 authors and scientists got together to write an announcement to how wrong he was.
Rebuttal. Yeah.
Rebuttal. And they said that Albert Einstein said, if I was wrong, you only needed one person.
Yeah, and then he even shared that in the video. Then they waited for an eclipse, and then they tested the light's bend around the eclipse and knew that he was right. So
I just seen what, they were saying. I just seen a guy recently that was talking about how far Albert Einstein was out there, talk about lack of bullshit, is I guess there's apparently 2 black holes that are spinning and they're moving around each other. And Albert Einstein figured out how fast each black hole was spinning, how much they were moving around each other, and that he came up with this figure saying that they were pulling 7 centimeters closer to each other every so many days. And this scientist said, now because of the Webb telescope, his calculations were right on. And I think he did this like in 1910 or something. And I'm going, he can't look up with his eyeballs and see this shit going on. How did he know this stuff was going on? That's some pretty amazing stuff right there.
just, yeah, imagination, like being able to think outside the box, like think differently than other people. I think that you see a lot of people. I was even talking to, because this is one of those things, right? You don't choose your own legacy, right? And we've talked about that. And so there can be a lot of bullshit involved with people's legacy, or good or bad. You know what I mean?
Trying to create a legacy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a difficult part in and of itself. But
Even though that we have people that are trying that.
always,
That's all I'm gonna say.
always. I always. I think that the number one thing to come to terms with as a human being is that you don't have control over everything, and the more you grow in life, the more that's tested. Like you'll be like, oh, this area I control something, and then you realize you don't, and then you're like, this area I definitely control something, and then you realize you don't, and it just keeps going that way to remind you that really you're just along for the ride. It doesn't mean you can't drive and go and do the things that you want to do and be creative with it like Albert Einstein was. But Albert Einstein also was an immigrant that came to the United States, you know what I mean, from Germany. And so you got to facilitate a place full of ideas and people that will be open to them. You know what I mean? They could have said, regardless of what they said against Einstein, they could have tried their best to go against him. But as we've said before, and as you've said before, Dad, time will only prove or disprove you. Yeah, and that's the case.
Promoter exposed.
Yeah, and I think that's where bullshit really like starts to fall apart, is even some of the bullshit that we're dealing with today.
Right.
50 years down the line, when it's being taught or whatever it may be, we'll be able to clearly see what was bullshit and what wasn't. Just like we look back now and go, that was definitely bullshit. We started talking about the war in Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction. In hindsight, it's easy to go, that was bullshit. I was only a kid when all of that really started, but even I remember everybody being hurt, upset, and just needing an outlet for that anger.
Yeah.
And all you need is somebody that's able to point, guide, and direct that anger on something that's probably not the right thing to be doing, not the right source for your anger. The anger should be in, why is this happening, not in who did this. Like, I think that's one of the biggest issues that we deal with. So.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. It's like, when you have a a president of the United States, standing on a bunch of smoke coming out of iron and concrete for 9/11, and just went, so people are going to pay. We got to make these people pay. Even your most heartfelt liberal at that time was going, yeah, they do. And we're seeing some of the similar things happen right now, with Israel. People got to keep reminding people that a bunch of people broke across the border and, killed a bunch of babies and killed a bunch of women and
Mhm.
raped them. And I'm still to this date, I just tell people all the time, you can forget about that. I still just don't know why people during this war are still not upset with the people that are still being held. That tells me all the intentions that I need to know. If you broke in to my house and you still hold one of my children, I do not give a fuck what you think.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
my child for X amount of time. I don't know whether they're live. I know that they're not enjoying themselves. And anybody that wouldn't let that person go, in my opinion, is they don't need to be on this planet anymore.
And these are the same
And
people that keep doing it over and
uh,
over and over again, even when peace is made, when they're supposed to be in agreement, and they have this what is it, mantra in their mind. Mantra is not a good word, but it's the only one I can think of right now.
right.
This thing in their mind that says these people shouldn't be here, they shouldn't be alive, they should not even exist on the face of the earth. So therefore, we are going to that our creed is to erase them from
Yeah,
the earth, regardless of whether they make peaceful solutions with them or not.
yeah,
That is a big problem. That is humanity in bullshit.
yeah. And then you get to see immediately how someone can rally the whole different opposing side of that.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
I'm like going in my mind. It's like anybody that holds up a sign saying that a certain group of people need to be exterminated, that I just have a difficulty of trying to figure out where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It's
Or
like,
people that do
but
these horrendous
but
things to
that
people
group of
are
people,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that group of people bought into someone's bullshit. That's for damn sure.
Well,
There you go.
it goes back to just wanting to be significant, wanting, if the people you hang around perceive something as incredibly important, then you are probably as well, to stay in that social group. So I think it's important to realize in these situations whether you're siding with something that may or may not be something you agree with or even care about. Strictly based off of the fact that you'll be disowned or not accepted by the group of people that you're in. If you
Right.
even said something like, I don't really follow this, I don't know anything about it, I live in the United States, it's not it's not a issue for me here in California currently, right? And you can extrapolate things and you can take
Sure.
something and go, yeah, but you don't realize that this means everything, right? And the truth of the matter is it may to that group of people, to somebody that
Yeah.
it's personal for, it does mean everything. When you take it to a personal situation, Dad, like you said, if it's my child, now it's a more personal thing. Anybody that
Yeah.
has children can relate with somebody that has their children as a hostage and how they'd feel about that and what they would want to do.
Mhm.
So of course, it's in the best interests of any of the groups that want to win your favor to take the things that you emotionally connect with the most and put them up front as much as they can, right? Because then
Yeah.
at least you could be like upset about it consistently. And if it doesn't
Right.
resolve itself, then you can just be mad about it indefinitely.
Well, I was
And
thinking,
and
Matt,
that
when I
that's always a
when
good place
I
to be.
didn't mean to laugh while you were talking, but
No, I'm not, it's
the
I don't care.
download that I had as you're saying that very serious point was, that's why we can allow very, very violent movies to start out that way. Isn't that funny? It's like, hey, I'm just trying to mind my business. Yes, I used to be the top CIA agent in the world, but you broke in my house and killed my dog. Are you killed my wife?
John
Are you
Wick.
kidnapped? Are
Right.
you kidnapped my daughter? So now
Yeah.
everyone can sit in the
goodness.
seats, go
Yeah.
kill everybody.
Yeah.
Well, it goes to the, you know,
But it goes to what you're saying, the emotion part, because that's what drives a lot of
Yeah,
this. We
it's like,
don't
oh my
think.
God, if someone kidnapped my daughter or killed my dog, everyone needs to, it's like,
and if John Wick was made today by Disney, then he would lose a dog, a cat, and a gerbil, just so we can make sure everybody
oh,
we can hit everybody, just in case if there's somebody that doesn't connect with the fact that
Ow.
the dog, they didn't have a dog, they only had a gerbil. So
that was one of the best one-liners I've heard in a long time. That was
it,
uh
it's
Yeah.
my frustration with it because I love
what's the funny
storytelling.
comedian?
Like I
That was a
hate
George
that
Carlin
shit.
line. That was a George Carlin line.
Yeah. Well, I do think of those things from time to time because I'm like,
Sure.
I'm questioning, you know, I've written things before that I've given people, and their response to it was like, they'll read the story and they'll go, but I read this one scene and you didn't think about how this would be perceived in this certain way, right? Like, they'll say there's this particular character, they're going through the sequences of events. Don't you realize that you can't have that person that's that ethnicity or this or that religion or gender do these things because you're saying all these things about this group of people? And I'm like, isn't, like, in my mind, this is one of those things, and maybe this is the George Carlin element of me. In my mind, I'm like, isn't that perpetrating racism more than I am? But when you
You actually
purposefully
thought them
saying,
out.
when you're purposefully saying this character because they're this thing, then you're perceiving them that way based off of the way a character is in a story that has nothing to do with that. But you're seeing them as a race and them perceiving it that way because they're that race and telling me not to do that. Doesn't that mean that you're thinking about
I
it?
like that. I like that people are calling bullshit on that right
I just
now.
always
You know
love
what I mean?
that's like Tarantino's response to it, because you can make Django Unchained, a movie about a guy that goes and kills all of his slave owners, and it's a fucking awesome movie, and people still go, yeah, but you said the N-word so many times in it. It's like, and you're white, so you're not allowed to write the N-word. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm writing it about a guy that's going and killing all of the people that said the N-word to him.
Right.
Are you losing the plot along the way?
The point of the plot.
You are,
Yeah.
clearly. You know what I mean? You're more interested in this, so you can have your like moral high ground.
I really love. I love right now where there's certain races that are speaking up for speaking against people that are basically calling out people for defending their race when they're not their race. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
So
it's basically middle-aged. Jesus. I'm like trying to alienate everybody in this podcast.
Careful, Matt. Careful.
I'm just saying, middle-aged white people need to have some other shit to do.
Matt, tell
Yeah.
people who the
Like-
bullshitters are.
Well, because I always feel like there's some form, and I'm a straight white dude, so this is just my opinion. I think, truthfully, when a group of people stands up, whether it's a different sexuality, race, anything like that, and they go, I'm being oppressed, I'm dealing with this shit. My goal is to stand out of the fucking way and go, listen to what they're saying. My goal is not to push them aside and go, guys, over here, guys. Because the truth is, all I'm doing is invalidating their message by saying, people only listen if I say something.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me going, and you see the best of the best, I could say Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers is the type of guy that will bring somebody out that's black and wash their feet in front of everybody in the middle of the civil rights movement. He doesn't need to stand in front of everybody and go, this is right or this is wrong. He goes, no, this is dignity. This is humanity. This is being a good fucking person. Has nothing to do with all of that shit. And I think that that's where people mostly loses. They get like so attached to all this stuff, and instead of like just treating everybody fucking normal and like being helpful and kind. Yeah, the golden
Look at the
rule,
recent
right?
one, Matt, with Little
So yeah,
Mermaid.
get it. Well, that's what I'm saying. Even in those situations, like it's just Disney doing what they're currently doing, which is like they most of their marketing, it seems to be, is like outraging half the people that used to like what you made, which is
Yeah.
like one of the dumbest ideas I've seen, right? Because it's like if you're no longer treating the people that love and care about the art that you're making, then who are you really making it for? You know what I mean? Because you're not making it for yourself, clearly. But
Well,
I
obviously they're trying to
Yeah.
grab a different market and try to sell it, but it's
then bring in people that are part of that group and let them tell brand new original stories about that experience. Support them in talking
exactly.
about that experience, or support them in making stories that involve elements of themselves. If
Who was
somebody's gay, then
the
odds
the
are that's going to elements, like I was bringing up the Matrix before we got started in here. Odds are elements of that are going to make it into the plot, right? Regardless if
who's the
you don't know or
director
not.
recently that is it This Is Us, the black director who um has actually created a horror genre?
Peel.
Peele,
Oh,
yeah.
Jordan
Peele,
Peele.
Jordan Peele, yeah.
Get
And it's
Out,
like, okay,
Us, and Nope
yeah,
are his 3 movies.
yeah, but here's somebody who actually did that. I mean, he felt that, okay, fine, his race, his culture was not being well represented. So what did he do? He went out and he made what he felt was a good horror film. And what happened? He got critical acclaim.
Well, I mean, I love Get
Cool.
Out for many reasons, but I Get Out works so well because Jordan Peele had refined that same weapon that Dave Chappelle had refined with the Chappelle Show, which
Right.
was he had figured out how to speak and talk about something, but do it in the George Carlin way, where everybody in the room laughs, even though they all know that they're a part of it and they're facilitators
Exactly.
of it. And when you can get everybody part of your experience,
Master.
you're a
Master.
master, in my opinion. Now you're starting, and that's like Martin Luther King Jr., right? It's like he came from a place of we need everybody to love and care about one another and see everybody together. We don't need to be talking about we need to be talking about these specific issues, but they need to involve everybody in the solution, not just involve one group in the solution. Because if everyone's
Right.
not in the solution, then there isn't going to be one, right? Because there's always going to be that other group that's going, that ain't the solution, right? This is, and it's like the opposite, right? So I'm going to give you guys
Yeah.
time to talk. I've ranted for like
No,
a minute, but
No.
I was just gonna say if here's what, in some constructive thing that we can do from this point on, right? I would just say that, that if I were going to say anything to you, if you're the kind of person that constantly is in the habit or in the concept of, I'd rather live in the consistent bullshit of the world, you know what I mean? That might be okay for you. I'm just saying that, um, just like when I was told, 37 years ago when I met my mentor, he only asked me to very simply just write down in a notebook that I still have, right? So this was my first notebook, and all he wanted me to do is log down the amount of time that I did stuff. This was my first journal. And it was like when I realized how much time I spent listening to other people tell me bullshit, my life sucked shit. Okay? Because I had my mentor challenge me, and he challenged everybody in the room, and at that time there was only like 32 people in the room. And he goes, "I'm not trying to embarrass you or anything. I just want you to tell me one original thought that you came up with. Give me one original thought that you really took the time, whether it was through meditation or prayer or whatever, and you're not around anybody. But the people that fucking changed the world are people that focused on solutions and constantly came up with ideas of original ideas on how to serve humanity. If you want to know what you should be spending your fucking time on. That's what you should be spending your time on. Is you become who you hang around, find people that are trying to find solutions to some of the biggest problems on the planet. That's what I want to be a contributor of. I want to be a contributor. I want everyone to know that they're a miracle, that they're unique, that there's no one like them. And they shouldn't be like trying to copy everybody if they're fucking unique. And you got to ask yourself, wow, if I've never come up with original thought, then where does all this bullshit come from? Why do I still believe that, hey, Matt, make sure you put a jacket on before you go outside so you don't catch a cold. And then I find out later that, wow, colds are viruses and have nothing to do. To think that there's scientists and people out there that purposely put people in freezers to try to get them to catch a cold and not wear a jacket. All right. There's shit that you say every day that is bullshit, and you won't take the time to find out what is bullshit or not. And let's get really bold about this to close this out. When you realize and come to the aha moment that most of the bullshit that you believe is what's destroying your life is shit that you think about yourself, that someone else told you that you're not enough, you don't know enough, you're not smart enough, you're not cute enough, you're not good looking enough, you're the wrong body fucking type, you're the wrong race, you went to the wrong city, you went to the wrong schools. When you start realizing that the majority of bullshit that you believe is what other people fucking have said about you, and then the most bullshit is the shit that you say to yourself. If you could just get rid of the fucking bullshit, that you're listening to, that you're resonating with, that you're following, when you start questioning everything that you know, and you take the time to learn to love yourself and believe in yourself and trust yourself and start asking yourself these questions, you're going to slowly pull out of all this bullshit that's in the world that makes you lose your hope, lose your belief in humanity, thinking that a whole, not race, but I think all males are bad. I think all females are bad. It's crazy that we can divide the world this way, that, there's 3,000, there's 400,000 registered religions. And the only one that's right is the fucking one you were told that was right. Golly. I don't like foreigners. Why don't you like foreigners? Because I was fucking told that foreigners are not supposed to be here when this country was made from fucking foreigners. It's so bizarre how much bullshit's out there. So, hey, I'm done with my little rant there.
I don't have anything to add. You were right on the point.
That's it right there. I'm done. That was a perfect way to just wrap up this whole podcast episode.
Hey, and the thought that I had to my mind, thank you guys so much, because you guys are fucking amazing. You pull this shit out of me. But it's like there's a phrase out there, and maybe you guys can AI it really quick. But there's a phrase out there that's called, just cutting all the fat off. Just getting down to the bare minimums. And every one of you know what the bare minimums are.
The minutia.
Yeah.
Is a word.
The bare minimums are this. You got to learn to trust yourself and your instincts. Instead of, we know the five senses, we know there's eyes, we see, hear, smell, touch, taste, but no one talks about, your instincts and your perspective and your memory and, looking at things through another person's shoes. We hear all this wisdom that's not really out there anymore. And what's wrong with not believing something unless it's proven otherwise? I never thought that I would grow up and even see the justice system in the United States. Bullshit. fucking bullshit. You guys want to hear one last bullshit? And this will be a good one to end. So everyone's mad at the Supreme Court now because based on someone's definition of no one knows what the fucking law is, but they're basically allowing a president to be a king. And they don't realize that in the midst of doing this, the guy that got it done isn't elected now. Biden is. So what can Biden do? Can he call up SEAL Team 6 and say, take this fucker out?
Apparently
and he's
so.
immune?
Yeah.
He's immune.
Well, that's why I was even joking with Craig before
I
this.
just threw out a theoretical because it wasn't mine. So FBI don't come after me. But it's like, wow, there used to be something where I seen through my lifetime where presidents did something and, they got reprimanded for it. And people were just saying, listen, not even the president's above the law.
Yeah, I remember Nixon's interview with Frost, right? That was like one of the classic. There's even been a movie about it. But when he was in that interview and he was like, a president is above the law or whatever. And that was like a big deal to people because they're like, no way.
Do you know, based off the Supreme Court ruling that just happened, Nixon didn't do anything wrong?
No, I know.
Yeah.
Because they used stuff that he did while he was in office.
Yep.
When everyone agrees that he did something wrong, and that's why he left office.
Yeah, he stepped down. He wasn't even impeached. He just was like, yep, I did wrong. I'm out of here. Rather not get impeached.
After people pointed it out to him, though. Otherwise, it would have been. And here we're dealing with that similar kind of situation.
Well, yeah.
So, you guys are not. Madness. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm on humanity's side. Our goal with doing these podcasts and the videos that I've done is all for you to, be the best father, the best mother you can be the best spouse you can be, the best sibling you can be. Man, you're never, ever, ever going to live the life that you can imagine and you can dream about as long as you're caught up in all the bullshit. You got to cut all the fucking bullshit out and just go, hey, none of this stuff means. And if you got a group of people that are telling you that you're not a person, that you don't have any humanity, if you don't stand up for something, just tell them to fuck off. It's like, I wish that people would be bold enough to say, hey, if you really understood my life right now and every area in my life not being what it should be, I'm doing my best to take care of me. And if that's selfish, who gives a shit?
Well, it's like, hey, single mother who's working a job to support her children and shit. Why aren't you taking a stance? It's like, what a weird thing to think about, right? Yeah. When her child care costs almost as much as what she's paying. It's like, well, she's not thinking about those things. She's thinking about these things. So, yeah. With that said, I think that was a great end, Dad. Thank you so much. Craig, do you have anything you want to share towards the end here? Or?
No, I think we have touched on a lot of bullshit and, there's still a lot out there, but at least
need that little pin. Need that little pin that says BS with a red circle and a line through it.
Yeah.
It's like an iceberg. Go. It was just the tip of the bullshit. Yeah. So.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow Robert Hollis at roberthollis.com. Also, if you'd like to join our exclusive community, the Inner Circle and the Imaginators, you can join us by going to roberthollis.com/join to register. There will be lots of great exclusive content, and you'll be able to participate in our special breakthrough sessions to help you move to the next level. Please don't forget to like and share this video on YouTube with others. It will help us grow our community and reach those with ears to hear. Matt, wow, thank you so very much for being our executive producer. And of course, Robert, thank you so much for being our GPS to success, our guide, our mentor, and our dear friend. We love you. Both gentlemen, appreciate you. And we love you. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Please, my name is Craig A. Jackman. Be good to yourselves. Be cash. And until next time, bye-bye for now.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Craig and Dad. Love and appreciate you guys.
Love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.